On to our top focus this evening. Is Palestine a reliable friend of India's? The Palestinian Authority has rejected reports in the Pakistani media that its ambassador to Pakistan will be reinstated next week. The reports had quoted Pakistani cleric Tahir Ashrafi as saying that he had requested for recalling of the envoy, for reinstatement of the envoy Walid Abu Ali, and the Palestinian government had assured him that he would be sent back next Wednesday. Ashrafi is the leader of the Pakistan Ulema Council, which advises the government. Both Ramallah and New Delhi have, however, denied any such move. Sources within the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi said, and I'm quoting, reports that the Palestinian ambassador to Pakistan has been reinstated are incorrect and misleading. The position, as clarified by the Palestinian Foreign Ministry last week, stands, unquote. Palestine also rejected the reports. The Palestinian authorities have said, and I'm quoting, denying reports of Palestine ambassador to Pakistan's reinstatement, condemning Pakistan media reports, spreading falsehood. Palestine's position remains unchanged, unquote. The Palestinian ambassador to Pakistan had shared the stage with the Jamaat-ud-Dawah chief and global terrorist Hafiz Saeed at a public rally last month. The ambassador, Walid Abu Ali, had attended that gathering in Rawalpindi's Liaquat Bagh under the banner of the Difa-e-Pakistan Council, which is a grouping of jihadi parties. The rally had been called in support of the Palestinian cause. India had strongly objected to the ambassador's presence at that rally and his sharing of the stage with the global terrorist Hafiz Saeed. Palestine had thereafter recalled the ambassador, and now the latest reports have put a question mark over the Palestinian intent once again. Remember, these claims made by the Pakistani media come barely a week ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to India. For the record, Palestine is stoutly rejecting the reports in the Pakistani media. Palestine's envoy to India spoke to WION a short while back and said that no such action was being contemplated and that the ambassador was very much in Ramallah. Listen in to what he said.
The decision is a decision. It is a relation between governments, so we don't play games. When we have told the External Ministry of India in our decision, when we told the media in India in our decision, I told you there is no changes in the decision.
Let's broaden this up. Joining us on the broadcast from Israel is Arsen Ostrovsky, who is an international human rights lawyer and political analyst, joining us from Tel Aviv. Also joining us is Ray Local, national security advisor with the USA Today, joining us from Washington. Also joining us is WION's associate editor, Palki Sharma Upadhyay from New Delhi. Palki, to you first. Help our viewers understand and maneuver around this maze that seems to be coming up in the light of the recent reports and claims made by Pakistani media. Should India look at these claims seriously? How much weight should be given to these claims in the light of the rejection that's come from Palestine?
Well, I would say, good evening, first of all, to all of you and to you, Molly. I would say if India had to choose between believing the Palestinians and believing the Pakistanis, it's not even a question. I think given what we've had in terms of our experience with Pakistan, it's easier to go with the Palestinian narrative. Also, you have to see that where are the reports coming from? On the one hand, you have the Palestinian government and its representatives saying that our decision stands, that the ambassador is not going to be reinstated to Pakistan and we are not going to play games, and these are all lies being spread. On the other hand, you have some elements in the Pakistani press and some so-called leaders, religious leaders who have their own personal motives, who are saying that they've been assured. This is not coming from the Pakistan government. It's coming from people outside the government who say that they've been assured by the government in Ramallah that the Palestinian ambassador to Pakistan will be reinstated. It's not even a choice, really. You have to believe what is coming from the official sources, and that is the Palestinians who have apologized. They've said that this was unintended, the sharing of stage with Hafiz Saeed, but not justified. And that is, to my mind, a strong enough statement when it comes to diplomatic conversations. So I think we should go with what the Palestinians are saying, and that is what the government of India seems to be doing so far.
Absolutely. Stay with me, Palki. Let's also get in Ray Locker onto the conversation. What do you think is going on here? What's the intent behind these claims that have been put out in Pakistani media, which, reiterating here, are only based on another set of claims made by a Pakistani cleric?
Well, I think the Pakistani cleric was saying that to satisfy his own constituency, to make it seem like he was plugged in and that they had common cause with the Palestinian government. I agree with what Palki says. The Palestinian government doesn't want to touch this. I would consider them far more credible, although some of their earlier disclaimers weren't necessarily on point. The Palestinian government has no interest in inciting India's displeasure any more than it already has. But, you know, the proof will be if this guy shows up in Islamabad or anywhere else in Pakistan representing the Palestinians. If that does, then their credibility is shredded, and I don't think that's something that they want to have happen.
Arsen, what's your reading of these developments and the latest twist in this controversy?
Well, there's certainly no shortage of you know, I would preface by saying, noting the Palestinian ambassador's comments denying the latest developments, that the Palestinian Authority had also initially denied that that their ambassador had any knowledge or knew who Hafiz Saeed was. But as your own reports had uncovered a number of weeks ago, there actually was quite ample evidence showing that they did exchange communications in the weeks prior to the event in Rawalpindi. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. And certainly, as some of the other commentators have said, that if the Palestinian envoy does ultimately turn up again in Pakistan, we'll know that that too was a lie. But from Israel's perspective, we're certainly watching it very closely. Prime Minister Netanyahu is due in India on an historic visit, only I think on the 14th, and Prime Minister Modi is due on supposedly on a visit to the Palestinian Authority in February. So the Israelis are watching this very, very closely,
right,
and trying to use this as an opportunity to reinforce our own bilateral ties with the Indian government. All
right, I want to also take that across to Ahmad Shaheen, senior journalist joining us from Pakistan. Good evening, Ahmad. Who is Tahir Ashrafi? What's his... why is he the one making these claims? Why is he the point of contact, if at all? If the Palestinian authorities have to make such a reassurance to Pakistan, why would they communicate that to a Pakistani cleric? What do you think is really going on here?
Maulana Tahir Ashrafi is a very prominent figure when it comes to patching things between two parties, especially if one of the parties is the military establishment. The military establishment, since Tahir Ashrafi's arrest many years ago, in what can be described as a compromise situation, Tahir Ashrafi has been the military's go-person to sort things out when it needs to, using religion or politics. Tahir Ashrafi has quite a bit of following in his own area as well, so he is kind of a Gaddi Nashin as well. Coming to the topic, when you're talking about an ambassador going to the wrong place at the wrong time and rubbing shoulders with the wrong person, I think you need to understand the dynamics of the country that's happened in. When you're an ambassador, I mean, you should know about the country when you're an ambassador of a country, but as a foreigner, you wouldn't expect that these people who are freely allowed to roam around, protest, and do their things are actually terrorists. So, like, you know, I could give him that kind of discount, that you wouldn't expect, oh, right, so this guy who's given protocol by the police, who's given permits to, protest on the streets, who's allowed to advertise in the newspapers, is a terrorist, and you wouldn't expect the kind of backlash.
Well,
so as an investor, maybe do more homework.
Well, Palestine called it an inadvertent error, but also expressed strong regret at that time. Let me also take that across to Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, former Deputy Ambassador to Israel and distinguished fellow ORF, joining us on the broadcast. Good evening. We have these claims and the counter-claims, but let's face it, Pakistani media is strictly going by a set of claims made by a Pakistani cleric. Palestine has strongly rejected these claims. But in the wake of the back and forth, to your mind, what is the dissection, what's the outcome, and what do you think Pakistan is trying to do here?
Well, I think it's a classic case of disinformation that the Pakistani establishment is actually trying to spread. And the man that was mentioned, Tahir somebody or the other, is probably the mouthpiece, as your Pakistani journalist also claimed, that he was the go-to man when it comes to military, religion and politics. So clearly he's been set up to say all these things, and some of the lapdog media in Pakistan have bought it up or have been paid to spread this story. I will not discount the fact that some pressure is being brought upon the Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian government to rescind the decision, so that Pakistan can feel that hobnobbing with globally united designated terrorists is quite a normal thing for any ambassador posted in that country. So I think Pakistan is playing this game to claw back some of the damage that has been done already, and given the situation that it is in today, with over $2 billion being put on hold by the Trump administration and various other issues that Pakistan is facing. So I think this is part of that game plan to basically obfuscate the issue, dilute the effect of what has happened, and I think try to score some brownie points here.
But Palki, will Pakistan be able to score these brownie points? But let's also put this into context. This is coming right before the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to India. This is also coming before the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ramallah. Could the timing here be of significance equally in terms of these claims?
I want to make a few points. First of all, I disagree with Ahmer. I tend to agree with him on a lot of things, but I disagree. You don't have to be a Pakistani and you have to be living under a rock to not know who is Hafiz Saeed. And diplomats everywhere around the world follow a standard protocol. If you're going to be part of a gathering, if you're going to be attending an event, you know who's coming there, more or less. And I'm not sure that Hafiz Saeed's entry to this rally was a surprise to anyone. It wasn't a last-minute decision. He was going to be there, and this ambassador knew. And by most reports that we've seen coming out of Pakistan, he's attended events where Hafiz Saeed was present in the past, and he knows what India has been talking about Hafiz Saeed since 2008. It's been 10 years. You cannot not know what India thinks and feels about this man. Having got that out of my way, these visits, bilateral visits, Molly, are planned well in advance. Clearly, New Delhi did not know that this ambassador is going to be there. Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit was planned well before, and so was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit. And many are saying that India should teach Palestine a lesson. I have to give out some facts here. What does India give Palestine? India was the first non-Arab country to recognize the Palestinian state. India has given Palestine a few $1 million in aid over the years. There are some cultural ties. Many students came here to study. Now that number has gone down to barely 500. The trade is bare minimum. What India gives Palestine is support, as the other Arab states also do, and beyond that, very little. India believes in the two-state solution. The Prime Minister of India reiterated that in November last year, and that remains India's position. But India also does business with Israel and the US, and these two things are separate, just like Israel does business with China. And when Doklam happened, Israel did not speak for one country or the other. You have to follow your own self-interest, and that's what India is doing. So for all those who've been saying through the day today that India should teach the Palestinians a lesson, the Prime Minister should cancel his visit, and these things are not seen in isolation. India will follow what it deems best for its policy, for its foreign policy, and that's what's going to happen. So yes, Prime Minister Netanyahu will be coming next week. Prime Minister Modi will be going to Ramallah. It'll be business as usual. And when things go wrong, when there's a bad apple like this ambassador in Pakistan, you're going to make a tough statement and make sure that amends are made.
Sure, and when I questioned the timing, Palki, what I meant was the Pakistani media reports. Could the timing of these reports have anything to do with these impending visits? both from the Israeli Prime Minister.
Yes. It helps them. It helps them to ruin the case here. You also have to bear in mind that there is a federal election coming up in Pakistan, and as someone said earlier, that this is more for the domestic constituency of the speakers. They want to take a certain position. They want to show India in a bad light. They want to say, look, our policy has worked, and India is deserting its traditional friends. And so the Palestinians are going to send the ambassador back and so on and so forth. So I agree with the former ambassador there, Ambassador Chakrabarti, that this is a misinformation campaign that is being spread and we shouldn't buy into it.
All right, just hold that thought there, Palki. Speaking of that upcoming visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Ramallah, Palestine, of course, is being cautious just before that likely visit to Ramallah in February. Palestine had issued a statement that Walid Abu Ali was recalled because Palestine has historical ties with India, which are close and friendly, and they want to respect those ties. A spokesman of the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs had said on the 30th of December, and I'm quoting, commitment of the state of Palestine and its keenness to maintain strong and friendly relations with the Republic of India, as well as its support to the efforts made by the Republic of India in its war against terrorism, unquote. Last month, India had raised strong objections when the ambassador shared the stage with global terrorist Hafiz Saeed. India, of course, had also voted along with 127 other countries in favor of a resolution in the United Nations General Assembly that implicitly called on the US to withdraw its decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Officials insist there is no question mark over Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Palestine. Emir, I also want to seek a response from you on what Palki just stated and the earlier point of how an ambassador, an envoy, could not know who Hafiz Saeed is. Having said that, there is also this aspect and something that beats me, that Pakistan media reports going by the claims made by a Pakistani cleric who, of course, also has his own set of controversies, who's been, tackling several accusations against him as well. But that's besides the point. He is not a man who is a representative of the government. So why go by these claims and these assurances that he claims to have received from the Palestine side?
If you're talking about Maulana Tahir Ashrafi, then he is in a way representing the Islamic ideology of the government.
But coming to the more important, yes, he advises the government as the head of the Pakistan Ulama Council, but he is not definitely.
He has no place to directly influence. Bringing back of an ambassador. True, that is true. I want to come back to the point where Palki was raising the question that how on earth does an ambassador not know who Hafiz Saeed is, and how on earth does he not know the Defy Council Pakistan, like what that entails, who's going to sit next to you? Well, I want to bring it to the next step. Then how on earth would an ambassador not know that by sitting with a terrorist, you might majorly screw up your career? It's because the ambassador is a human being and he made a mistake. That's how I see it. You have the right to disagree with me, but I wouldn't understand how knowingly an ambassador would sit with a proclaimed terrorist by the UN. It defies as much logic as it defies the logic of not knowing it.
Mr. Loka, go ahead.
I think that this is probably going to be a blip that just passes. It does seem unlikely that an ambassador would show up at an event with somebody like Hafiz Saeed and not know who he is. But yes, people do make mistakes. I also think that there are probably people in the Pakistani government and the military who are going to this cleric and using him as the mouthpiece to go to the media. That doesn't surprise me, and I think it indicates some level of government thinking, or at least the thinking of some faction inside the government, that they would like to see this ambassador return to Pakistan. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the risks are too great for Palestine. In this case, they don't want to anger India, and Palestine needs India. As you mentioned earlier, India backs a two-state solution, backs a number of the things that the Palestinian government wants, and so it would be really short-sighted to anger a non-Arab, non-Muslim ally at a time when they really need all the friends they can get.
All right. Also, Arstan Ostrovsky, this whole argument of this was an inadvertent error, and Palestine, of course, had expressed a strong regret over its ambassador sharing the stage with a global terrorist. How has Israel viewed these latest remarks by Palestine, again reassuring India of stronger ties with the country?
Look, I don't think you're going to hear any official remarks from Israel regarding this. But I think from Israel's perspective, we would only reiterate that when one stands with perhaps with the Palestinians, they side with individuals like Hafiz Said. That on the contrary, when you asked before, is Palestine a reliable ally? And the answer from Israel's perspective ought to be no, they are not. Because when you talk about allies like the Palestinians, is an ally someone that would stand with someone like Hafiz Said, a notorious terrorist mastermind of the Mumbai attacks, or would one stand with Israel? From Israel's perspective, there's a natural alliance with India, the two large economies, two democracies, creative communities, entrepreneurial spirits, and both also, very importantly, facing a threat of Islamic terror. So from Israel's perspective, I think it would only underscore that when we're talking about reliable allies, it's Israel that is reliable ally in this case, and one ought to have some questions regarding the reliability of the Palestinians when one, in the first place, their ambassador meets with Hafiz Said, and then they lie about the fact that he didn't know who he was when clearly your own evidence uncovered the fact that he did. So I don't think this was an innocent mistake. The ambassador is not an amateur. He knew very well whom he was there with. It only shows, I think, perhaps contempt with which they treated the Indian people, and especially a massive slap in the face after the Indian government voted with the Palestinians at the UN against Israel and the US on the Jerusalem vote.
Okay. And just to reiterate here, Palestine has strongly rejected all of those claims that have been doing the rounds in Pakistani media on the basis of another set of claims made by a Pakistani cleric. I'm going to leave it there for the moment, thanking all our panelists, Ahsan Ostrovsky, Ahmed Shaheen, Ree Locker, our associate editor, Palki Sharma Upadhyay, and Pinak Rajan Chakravarti for joining us on the broadcast. But as we wrap this up, we're going to play out for you that exclusive interview that the Palestinian envoy to Delhi had with our correspondent a short while back, where he stoutly rejected the report, saying Palestine does not play games with friends. He described India as an old-time friend of the Palestinian people. Take a listen in.
The decision is a decision. It is a relation between governments, so we don't play games. When we have told the external ministry of India, in our decision, when we told the media in India in our decision, I told you there is no changes in the decision. The relation between India and Palestine goes back for decades. And India, it was always leading the world for the liberation of Palestine. India has very close relation with Palestine. Never we interfere in the bilateral relation between countries. India supports Palestine in the political issues, in the United Nations resolutions. India supports Palestine economically and the scholarship and the Palestinian institutions in general. And I would like to thank the government of India for all that. Palestine has 83 agreements with 83 countries against terrorism. And as India is one of our closed countries and very important country to Palestine, for sure we are against terrorism in general. So how it could, when it comes to a country, a friend country like India, for sure we support India in its war against terrorism, and we are ready to exchange information with the Indian government and help them. We have tried to release the 39 Indian who are kidnapped by ISIS, right? And we worked hard, and we're still working to release them. The most important issue in West Asia is the Palestinian cause. Without solving the Palestinian cause, without the liberation of the Palestinian people, without establishing the state of Palestine on the land of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital, I don't think you will find peace. All those people who are talking in the name of Islam will find a reason as long as Al-Aqsa are occupied by the Israelis. And I think the step of Mr. Trump has threw oil on the fire, which is illegal decision and illegitimate decision at the same time. I think while the achievement in Syria and Iraq against terrorism, this decision will help those terrorists, right, to grow up again. So the most important issue to be solved is the Palestinian cause. It could be something like the negotiation with Iran, as an example, 5+1, right? And I think we call India to be part of that body, because India also has a good relation with the Palestinians and with the Israelis. And I hope also this matter will be discussed during Mr. Netanyahu's visit to India, right? Because the measurement of the Israeli forces, occupation forces, are not accepted at all. The apartheid law in Israel to find two different laws, one to the Palestinians and one to the Israelis, I think it is apartheid, and it is discrimination. To keep the Palestinian people under that occupation and its measurement, confiscating their land, building settlements, demolishing their houses, killing their people, I don't think anyone would accept it in the world. I think it is very clear by the United Nations resolutions, Security Council and General Assembly, and all the statements of the world. The two-state solution, when we talk about it, we are accepting 22% of historical Palestine, right? It is the land which it has been occupied 1967, right? And this piece of land is, as I have mentioned, 22% of historical Palestine. Even with that, the Israelis, they don't want to give us this piece of land, and for that they are building settlements every day, which it won't be accepted, and in this case we will never find a peace solution, because the central cause in the area is the Palestinian cause. If you find a solution to that cause, a just solution to, according to the United Nations resolutions, right, on the land of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital, otherwise there is no solution, and I think there is no security.